My name is Bill Warner. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees here, which, by the way, absolutely does not qualify me to give a speech here today. So I just want to make that point. I have been given the opportunity to do something that I've never done before, and that is to talk about whatever I want. I don't have a subject. They didn't give me anything to talk about. So after thinking about it, I decided that I wanted to title my talk, Living the Questions. Now, what do I mean by living the questions? Now, as children, we were always taught that we needed to seek answers through school, through work. You know, the way we were successful was having the correct answers, being able to do the job. And our governments and our institutions stress this dependence on answers by establishing laws, rules, policies, all designed to either tell us how something works or how we're to behave. And these laws, rules, and policies are supposed to give us a sense of certainty and security in this human experience that we're going through. But it's a false certainty. It's a false security. Because as we know, as it's been experienced by the recent hurricane, life is anything but certain and secure. Which is why so many of us are afraid all the time, why so many of us are acting out of fear. You remember fear, I talked about that a few weeks ago. Now, through the centuries, people have turned to religion, to religious institutions, to ease that fear. But traditional religions don't like questions. They have answers, and their answers are absolute. And they will tell you when you come in the door, park your mind and intellect here and come on in, and we'll tell you what to believe. And if you don't accept that belief, then they will look you right straight in the face and they will tell you that you are going to hell. But asking questions is part of our human nature. It's who we are. And I'm sure you've heard somebody say, well, that's a stupid question. There really are no stupid questions. I'm sorry. Now, there are bad answers. Answers that don't directly answer the question. Politicians are good at that. How about answers that assume a level of knowledge that the questioner doesn't have? That's a bad answer. And there are also answers that defy logical thinking, defy the laws of nature and of science. And these bad answers, unfortunately, are coming from our religious institutions. Jesus, our way shower, clearly knew that answers only provide a false sense of security, and that can stand in the way of a deeper awareness of the divine. So let's get back to the question part. So for us, asking questions means that we're curious. It means that our mind is working, our intellect is in gear, our Christ spirit may be trying to tell us something. We're seeking understanding, and we're seeking to gain wisdom. Now, I don't know about you, but I have some questions. If a word is misspelled in the dictionary, how would we ever know? Why does slow down and slow up mean the same thing? Why do we wash bath towels? Aren't we clean when we use them? And you've heard it said to expect the unexpected. Well, doesn't that make the unexpected expected? I have more questions too, more serious questions. When did the concept of God first enter our human consciousness? How is it that we know anything about God at all? How do we know what questions to ask? And how can we decipher any possible answers? In unity, there you go. I was going to say I should have the 12 powers slide up there. In unity, we believe in the 12 powers. Okay? So let's take a look at 2 of our 12 powers. Understanding and wisdom. Now, understanding is the ability to know, perceive, comprehend, and apprehend. Okay, that's one of our powers. The other power is wisdom, the ability to evaluate, discern, apply what we know. So we have these powers. So let's take these powers of understanding and our power of wisdom, and let's look at just one question. What do we think of God? The conception of the nature of God varies according to the illumination and the enlightenment of each individual. It can also vary by any given time and any given place. Raisa Aslan has chronicled this evolution of our thinking about the nature of God in his book, God, A Human History. In it, he presents a possible timeline and postulates the beginning of God in our consciousness, and he follows it through the various religions to today. His conclusion is summed up by 3 words at the end of the book. And those 3 words are, you are God. It's a very interesting read. Now, for centuries, people have believed that the power of their destiny, the power that is regulating their success or failure, was something that only existed outside of themselves. They felt powerless and at the mercy of this image of God. This God was located at a distance, and although they prayed to him, they could only ever they believed they could only ever reach him once they died. This God is believed to allow evil, disease, poverty, entirely at his whim. He is also believed to intervene in battles and would even cure people of certain diseases, but again, only at his whim. Many people today still hold this image of God. And indeed, in your own experience prior to coming to Unity, you may have entertained such a belief. But we, in Unity, look to our Unity principle number 1. For our conception of God is there. There is only one presence and one power active as the universe and as my life, God the good. So let's take a look at that. Let's see how a person's or a community's view of God shapes everything else about them. I have 4 questions that I want us to consider. First question is, what is the character of your God? When you think about God, what are you imagining? Is he still that older gentleman sitting on a throne, holding on to a scepter, all-powerful, super being? Or is God a presence? Is God separate from you, or is he part of you? Is God a judge like in the Old Testament? Or is God love as in the New Testament? Can you speak with God? Does God's character reflect your character, or does your character reflect God's character? I have another question. What is the content of your faith? Now, faith is a word I haven't heard too much around here. And the dictionary definition of faith is that faith is a strong or unshakable belief in something without proof or evidence. It's a belief. So what's a belief? A belief is to have confidence in the truth, the existence, or the reliability of something, although without absolute proof that one is right in doing so. It's also referred to as a mental attitude of acceptance or assent toward a proposition without the full intellectual knowledge required to guarantee it's true. With those definitions, that may be why I haven't heard the word faith in here. But these definitions came out of the 17th century Enlightenment period. It was during that period that truth became something that needed to be proven. And that is a very Western culture concept. I prefer Marcus Borg's definition of faith from his book, The Heart of Christianity. In it, he defines faith as having 4 attributes. First, faith as belief. And this comes from our mind, our head, our intellect, our reasoning. The next 3 the definitions of faith come from the heart and come from our soul. And they are trust, fidelity, and vision. And by vision, I mean the way we see things. So in other words, in this way, I can see faith as not only an acceptance of things not proven, but thought to be reasonable, and also as a commitment of trust in God, fidelity to God, and a way of seeing God in myself and others. So when I ask you, what is the content of your faith, what I mean is, what do you believe in? The third question, what is the function of this spiritual center? What are we coming here for? What is the function, or is the function, I should say, is the function of this spiritual center centered in the building, or is it centered in the congregation? Now, we say we inspire, empower personal transformation. What does that mean exactly? How are we doing that? Do you know? Are we to inspire and empower only ourselves? Do people have to come here to get inspired and empowered transformation? And if you say that the reason we gather is to worship God, then I'll repeat the question. What are we here for? What is our function? Question number 4. What is the purpose of this worship service? Now, I've been to another Unity service, only one, at a different church. But it was very familiar. I mean, there was the welcome, the announcements, singing the daily word, the talk, and of course, the peace song. You got to have the peace song. If this is supposed to be our version of worshiping God, then I ask, is this how our God wants to be worshiped? Does God simply want prayers and meditation, or does God want prayers and meditation that lead to a new life? And this, of course, brings us back to what is your character of God? It's a circular exercise we have here with these questions. But these are questions we need to face. We need to know what we think of God. We need to know and see our relationship with God. We need to know why we come together. We need to know how we can function as a community. And we need to know that our Sunday celebration experience is meaningful and represents the character of our God. The ideas we hold about the nature of God and the language we use to describe God play out in small ways. They play out in how or even if we pray and or meditate. They play out in how we think about our purpose in life, in how we relate to those who do not share our beliefs. But they also influence how we see the world. And ultimately, they influence God's role through us in that world. We need to face these questions for another reason, too. In a few weeks' time, we will be facing a major decision concerning this ministry. It will be a decision that all of us have to make as a community. It's not something the board can do on its own. And I would like for each of us in the coming weeks to think about, to pray about, to meditate on the 4 questions that I've just asked. Now, I've made copies of these 4 questions, and they're on the usher's table in the back, and I encourage you to take one as you leave so you have something that you can remember what we're supposed to do. I'm giving you homework. It's important that we need to make the right decision. And for it to be the right decision, we will have to be sure of our beliefs. We will have to be sure of the function of our spiritual center. We will have to be sure of our purpose for ourselves and for our community. So my prayer for you today is simply this. May you live the questions now, so that perhaps someday in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Thank you for your kind attention today.